Didn't meet Dr. Richard. Yeah. Always, yeah, I'm hearing about him, but I didn't hear. Hello, Doctor. Yeah.
It's very nice to meet you, Dr. Kossay. I hope what you're hearing is generally positive about Iraq and now the British Council.
Thank you, thank you. We have a very good relations with the British Council.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very kind of you to say.
Okay. So how many do we have? We have Ahmed. Ahmed, great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for arranging this.
Thank you. So yeah, I think we can make a start. I don't know which part of the world you are, so I'm not going to say good morning or good afternoon, but I will say greetings from the IBBC headquarters in London, wherever you are, and a huge thank you for finding the time to join us today in your busy schedule. We have an excellent panel with different aspects of education who are interested and working both in Iraq and UK. This session is a part of the IBBC commitment to raise the standards in education in Iraq and facilitate the collaboration and transfer of knowledge between Iraq and the UK. As you probably all have gathered by now, we've had to change the plan cancel the Mansion House conference, which is one of the flagship conferences we have usually in London in the spring or summer every year. Because of the situation in the Middle East and the chaos to the travel world, it was felt that it is not going to be safe to plan for such a conference and for it to happening, which involves a lot of traveling to the people to the UK at this moment, at this stage. We are sincerely hoping that the situation improves and we can communicate and kind of meet again. But until that happens, the IBBC have agreed to organize these sessions online as for the different sectors. As you're aware, there are different sectors in the IBBC. And this is the education element that we were supposed to have in Mansion House, but we are having it online now. So once again, thank you for joining us today. What we will try to do is that tap into the knowledge, the experience, and the skills of our panelists and the experience they're going through, their circumstances, and to have an idea about the work that's taking place now in the field of education in Iraq and UK in relation to this collaboration between the two countries in this sector, but also the challenges that we have been facing in that part of the world and what learning that we can take away, because we've learned, unfortunately, that those challenges, those circumstances can recur. It can recur in any part of the world, but in particular, this part of the world seems to be more vulnerable to those circumstances. So I will start by asking our first panelist, Dr. Kossay Al-Ahmady, the Iraqi cultural attaché in London, to share with us his work in the UK, the role that he plays and his office in facilitating the exchange of knowledge between the two countries and the challenges that he is facing and how he's dealing with that. Dr. Kossay will speak in Arabic, and I will do my best to translate into English, but he is happy to take questions in English and then respond to them in Arabic. So, Dr. Kossay, sorry, before I do anything, I go any further, for everybody who joined in, we will have an opportunity to ask questions to the panelists, but also this session is being recorded. If you have any reservation or concerns about that, please let us know. Dr. Kossay, over to you. Please let us know how the Cultural Attaché Office is dealing with the situation in the UK, and how and your perspective on the challenges you are facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, I'm going to speak in Arabic because that's more comfortable for me. Okay?
Yes.
I'm going now to switch to Arabic. Yeah. المملكة المتحدة مهمة جدا بالنسبة لنا كعراقيين. أنا دائما على سبيل الطرفة أتكلم، لو خيرت أي عراقي تدرس وين، فالجواب الأول راح يكون المملكة المتحدة، والجواب الثاني أيضا راح يكون المملكة المتحدة، والجواب الثالث أيضا راح يكون المملكة المتحدة. Dr. Mohammed, if you want, I can speak English. Yeah,
I will translate this one. So to start with, Professor Kossay is telling us UK is very important for Iraqis, and in particular in education. And he's used this anecdote. If you ask anybody where would any Iraqi students, where would you like to study? He will say, in the first place is UK, in the second place it's UK, and the third place is also UK. So it gives you an idea about preference of Iraqis for education, which I think it applies also to other sectors. Dr. Kossay, back to you.
Yes, طبعا هذا الشيء مهم جدا، واحنا نقدر نستثمر هذا الشيء من خلال عدة مجالات. المجال الأول طبعا من خلال إرسال طلبتنا للدراسة في جامعات المملكة المتحدة، وهذا الشيء كان موجود من سنوات طويلة ولا يزال لحد الآن مستمر، وراح نتكلم الآن على البرنامج القادم لطلبتنا في المملكة المتحدة.
طبعا I end up speaking this. The UK has a long track of receiving Iraqi students as part of their scholarship scheme, and it is ongoing, and that's what Dr. Kossay is going to be talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Mohammed, I can switch to English if that's more comfortable.
Whichever is more comfortable for you, Dr. Kossay.
Okay, UK is very important for us, not only for sending our students to study here in UK. Now we have hundreds of our students studying here, and we have another plan for the government-funded scholarships to send about 2,000 students to study there. We are preparing now their documents for sending here to the UK universities. But our collaboration not only focus on sending students to study here. Now we want to go to other step of collaboration. Now, you know, there are some problems with the visa, specifically for the self-funded students. In Iraq, we have two types of scholarships. We have government-funded scholarships and self-funded scholarships. For the government-funded, now we have hundreds of students studying, and we are preparing for another 2,000. We don't have any problem with the visa. 100% of our students accept. But we have problem with the self-funded. And with the self-funded scholarships, we have hundreds of students want to study here in UK. So I think now is the better is to go to another step how we can strengthen the collaboration with the Iraqi universities. Yeah. In Iraq, we have two types of universities. We have government-funded universities and self-funded universities. For the government-funded universities, the salaries and running cost money coming from the government. And you know, government money is very tough to work with it. Yeah. For the self-funded universities, the salaries and running costs of the university coming from the tuition fees. So they have, for the self-funded universities, they have more flexibility with the money. And we want to use this money to strengthen the collaboration with the UK universities. How we can do that? I think we can go through joint programs, collaboration, teams work together, publishing papers, and step by step going towards the franchises. To be honest, our target goal is to reach to the franchise. Everyone in Iraq wants to study under the label of the UK university. Yeah. And I think that will be very useful to our country, to our students, even for the community to make that possible. UK universities working in the land of Iraq. Everything we can do, everything to make that possible. But we need your help. You need to work together to make that possible. That's our goal. Because I am engineer, I give you some numbers. Yeah. In 2025, we had 480K students graduated from the secondary schools and went to the universities. Because the Iraqi culture is the youth culture, can you imagine in 2030 how many students you will have? We will have 1 million students graduating from the secondary school and want to go to study at the universities. Our capacity of the universities is 470K. So in 2025, we had a shortage with about 10,000. In 2030, we will have a shortage with more than 500K. Can you imagine that? So I think these projects, I mean franchises and something like that, will be more than golden, because we have students, we have mentality to study under the name of the UK universities, and only we need to start the first step. How we can do that? Now we are working on that, and I want, and I hope that will be possible in the future, in the short future. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kossay. I will try to summarize very, very quickly. So there are two aspects. There is the scholarship, which there are ongoing program, and this is going well. There's a question mark about the self-funded and obtaining visa, which can come to that later on. But really, the bigger call for collaboration is to work between Iraqi and British university with the possibility of raising the standards of education in Iraq through adopting UK standards through different forms, whether franchise or other modes of collaboration. That is something I very much support and agree with Dr. Kossay. I think that's the way that we should be going forward. We are aware of the number of non-governmental universities that have been established in Iraq recently, quite a significant number. And I think the challenge for us in the academic world and for decision makers to gain the trust of the population in the standards across the board, but in particularly in the non-governmental universities. I think this is something we probably need to put to ourselves in terms of challenge. Thank you, Dr. Kossay, and I will move to Dr. Richard Sunderland, the country director for the British Council in Iraq. Richard, thank you very much again for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you, Mohammed, and lovely to see everyone. And I hope everyone, after this recent conflict, things are starting to return to normal and get back to the way we want them, which is able to invest and grow and sort of expand all of our joint collaborations. I think, yeah, it's fair to say the period from sort of February through to May was very, very challenging all around. We work on a national scale, so we had to kind of repivot and replan all of our work. There was understandably a requirement to postpone some of our activity. Local partners didn't feel comfortable, or we had people that weren't able to travel, but we did carry on with most of our activities right throughout the recent conflict. I think Iraq, we were very proud. We were the only country in the conflict affected countries in the region that maintained 100% record on all of their UK qualifications and IELTS. All of the HCED scholars and other people who were taking UK qualifications in that period, we found ways to find venues that were safe and secure and allow that to happen. So that was fantastic. We also, I think, learned early on that if some things had to be delayed, we may as well use the time productively. So we were kind of in the middle of a portfolio review anyway. So we kind of accelerated all of our portfolio work. We looked at all of our resourcing models, all of our investment. And we're able to kind of secure, we've got about 35% more investment for Iraq, which is fantastic. We're putting in new posts. We're able to kind of secure some investment for a new office in Erbil, which is fantastic. And I think when we went through that conflict, it was kind of, if every cloud has a silver lining, as we say in English, the positive for us was it reminded us of what our mission and our purpose and what our values are and how that has to feed all the way through into our programs. So we really came away thinking, with all the positive developments that are going to happen in Iraq in the next 3 to 5 years, we need to invest. We need to kind of have few areas, but do them at bigger scale. We have to work in partnership, and we have to be true to our mission and our values. So the big area that emerged for a fairly significant increase, and Dr. Kossay mentioned this, was around higher education. So building on the academic bridge initiative, which former Prime Minister Sudani very kindly gave the British Council in 2025. We're ramping up all of our work in higher education, particularly around transnational education. We published some research kind of in the middle of the conflict, just in a low-key way, about transnational education in Iraq and some of the barriers and opportunities. We want to build on that later in the year. We're kind of jointly designing with the Ministry of Big Education Summit in August. We launched all of our transnational education grants. These are kind of like catalytic grants that allow UK and Iraqi partners to work together on a particular research area or thematic area. We're doing some work on going back to the point about visas, a kind of train the trainer program for the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research to help heads of scholarships, international relations units understand about studying in the UK, the visa process, making sure that everyone engaged at the Iraqi end has got the latest information. And we're also carrying on with all of our deep dialogue, Going Global Partnerships events, both in the region and in the UK. So we think higher education is definitely an area. I absolutely agree with what Dr. Kossay was saying. The numbers are quite eye-watering when you get to 2030 in terms of how many people we're going into higher education and the gap in provision. We also took a good look at all the kind of basic education work we do and where really the British Council and the UK can add value. So we're going to be launching our curriculum on human rights and climate change. We went to see the minister last week, to the new minister, to discuss that. And I think that's a really good foundational skill. I think we'll go into all schools in Iraq, which we feel very proud of. We've also been thinking a lot about inclusivity. If you think about economic development or educational development, making sure that is inclusive, the economic growth that comes is inclusive. So we've been redesigning some of our particularly creative economy work, working with young entrepreneurs, young creative organizations to help them grow quickly and make a really positive contribution to the future, and investing more in our work around young people, particularly in civil society, community development, forging peace and prosperous relationships in communities and across various groups. So that's going to be good. And I think lastly, we've been kind of spending a lot of time with certainly the incoming government in Baghdad and other government stakeholders in the KRI. We keep coming back to this theme about economic diversification. I think it's a really good thing that the government's thinking in that way. So we've completely revamped all of our work for the private sector, whether it's private sector companies, schools, universities, looking at a whole range of English language, assessment, other professional development, because that economic diversification will only happen with an equal commitment to human capital investment. And we want the British Council to be working in partnership with local organisations on that. So I think I'd say we are, I don't know if you ever get back to normal these days, but if there is a new normal, we've got back to it. We're in full implementation now for 2026, 2027, and we've laid out basically all of our resource investments up to 2030. So we really look forward to working with the IBBC, its members, other related stakeholders to really realise those plans in the coming months. And we know, as I've said before, we can't do it on our own. Only by working in partnership with government and with other organisations can we realise these ambitions together.
Thank you very much, Richard. And I really share your approach, your principles, your values. It's really wonderful values to work together and work on. And I'm particularly pleased with your approach that used the crisis to take a stock, prepare, and get ready for the next day. I'm gonna just take a minute or so of anecdote that I've had a similar situation in at where I work. I'm a medic, as you know, and I'm at the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and we had our only committee was established, subcommittee, like more than 20 years ago. And I remember one meeting during the darkest moments probably in Iraq, during the sectarian violence and so on, when people say, what can we do? Situation is dire in Iraq and we can do. And I remember saying exactly what you said now, Richard. I said, listen, we have to use this time to get ready. Once the situation is improved and better, then we can go back to Iraq, and rather than starting from scratch again from zero. So I really love your approach and your thinking. And the point that you finished on, the economic diversity, it is such an important in all sectors, but in particularly in education, because this is what we want. The culture, people are influenced by education, and they need to think in that way. Your commitment to the academic bridge is wonderful, and I know firsthand of all the work and the efforts that you have been doing, the different delegation and organizing meetings. So again, quite a very rich list. But thank you again for joining us and contributing. I will move swiftly to. Thank you, Richard. I will move swiftly to Stephen, who's really one of the experts in the MENA region in general, but also in Iraq. And they hold the record, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, the largest number of Iraqi students that you have among British universities. And I'll ask for Professor Kossay to testify to that if needed.
I don't know if it's exactly the highest number. I think we're definitely in the top 5 in terms of the numbers. I think, yeah, Leicester do quite well. Historically, you've got other people like Nottingham as well that typically did very, very well. But I know personally that I've met so many wonderful Iraqi students who've been here at the university for maybe a master's. Some stayed on to do a PhD, and they keep on coming back. I know some of them, they've still got property in the area, so they keep it in the books that they still have that relationship with the university. A lot of these alumni as well are going back. They're now working in some of the Iraqi universities, and some of these have actually been instrumental in actually brokering the kind of conversations that we have between our university and some of the Iraqi universities. I'm sure the cultural attaché will recall coming to visit, and it was one of the alumni from Newcastle who was doing the work, and actually won an award for us in terms of the alumni work they've been doing for the university. So we know we get really good students coming as part of these scholarship schemes to the UK. We appreciate that our role, typically in the higher education sector in the UK, is mainly to help build capacity to help build, give people the education, the qualifications, so they can go back, hopefully go back, and then take that and deliver it to other candidates and inspire other people to actually have those aspirations. I know that during my last trip, and I've only, surprisingly, only been to Iraq twice, and that's mainly because the FCDO guidance has been read for so long that it's always been difficult to do. I know as soon as it changed to Amber last year, I made sure I went to Baghdad. I attended the IBBC conference in Baghdad, and in December I joined Dr. Richard at Basra for a wonderful educations conference that we had there. I see some of the people who were there actually in the audience are on the call today. But for me, it's important to be able to do that and go into market. I know Ian Gillespie is there as well, thanks to University of Dundee, because they give me the ammunition I needed to actually encourage my university to let me go, even though it still says all but essential travel. Obviously, the Gulf conflict has meant that, a lot of the kind of region went straight to amber. Unfortunately, Iraq went to red. But as of the 19th of June, that's now gone back to amber. So I'm hopeful, inshallah, that travel will be permitted. I know it's still going to be difficult. I know that universities are going to be fighting a kind of a big battle against university health insurance, those kind of people, just to make sure that we're doing this for the right reasons. I'm slightly gutted because I know that the 12th of July is actually 100 years since the death of Gertrude Bell. And I know she's buried there in Baghdad. And as a university, it would have been nice to be able to go and do something and maybe lay some flowers on the grave at that kind of day. But obviously, those plans have had to be kind of shelved. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that maybe later on, but maybe still this year. But I think it's important for us to realise that we are getting some good students. Historically, we're looking about recruiting to the UK. A lot of the conversations that we've been having are about collaborations, joint projects. And I think at universities, branch campus franchising is always going to be a difficult conversation. Maybe that's the ultimate aim, a bit further down the road. But what you need to do is maybe start with those kind of baby steps. So the baby steps might be joint collaboration in terms of delivery of a program, maybe sharing work in terms of curriculum development, helping to upskill the programs currently on offer in Iraq. So maybe the expertise there comes from the academic side of it, saying, well, here's our syllabus, here's the examples we can do, here's the projects you might want to do, and maybe then acting as external examiners to help with the kind of validation and conferment of those degree programs. Branch campuses, it's a very, very, very big investment for most universities. It's always going to be extremely difficult when there are travel restrictions. So even when it's still saying all but essential travel, that's going to put lots of universities off from actually engaging those conversations. It doesn't mean that we won't have conversations about collaboration in terms of the virtual sphere. But we know historically in the Gulf region, lots of universities and even government bodies won't recognise virtual qualifications. So there's got to be some conversations there about how we do that. Maybe you could do something like we do with certain universities, joint supervision PhD, where the students are actually registered working in a university in Baghdad, but maybe supervised remotely by an academic, maybe somewhere in the UK that has worked in certain market. It's not without its issues, but as long as you've got good internet connections and good, it normally tends to work okay. But we appreciate it is more challenging, especially as we move into the age of artificial intelligence and things like that. So there's going to be a lot more kind of scrutiny from universities to make sure that the people who are actually doing the work remotely are the people doing the work and not some AI bot or friends of that person. So that's always going to be a challenge. As a university, we're not really into that distance learning. In the UK, obviously, the Open University, they've been doing it for decades. So they've got lots and lots and lots of experience in dealing with that. For us, it's going to be a bit more challenging, but we appreciate that all HE, we're looking at how we engage with things like artificial intelligence, how we use it as a tool rather than actually using it to do the kind of work. So I wouldn't say that universities would be totally against these kind of collaborations. I would say it's going to be a challenge, and it's not just Iraq. I'd say we get the same questions asked to universities from Saudi Arabia, from Bahrain, from Kuwait, and a lot of them are going to get the kind of similar response. So if finances for some UK universities are very, very tight at the moment, it's going to be a bit of a challenge for them to be expecting to look into the opportunity of developing a branch campus. But start with the baby steps, start using the student ambassadors, the alumni, to broker those conversations, to do research projects, maybe to talk about delivery of kind of joint programs or co-delivery of programs. And then from there, you can go on to bigger and better things. And I'm just hopeful that, I can manage to convince my people in the university campus to let me return to, Iraq in the very, very near future. I've still got to manage to convince them to let me go back to Dubai. So it's a case of, if I can get to Dubai, then it's not too far to go to Iraq. So fingers crossed, inshallah, I'll be there in the next month or two. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And you said I only been to Iraq twice only. I mean, Stephen, you put a lot of Iraqi in diaspora Iraqi into shame, because some of the Iraqis have never been back to Iraq after they left. So don't underestimate the value of your visits to Iraq. On a personal issue, it's a shame that you couldn't put some flowers for Miss Bell grave, but the second best thing, either hopefully use all things go well, inshallah, that we might have our next IBBC winter meeting in Baghdad. Failing that, the IBBC office staff in Baghdad will be more than happy to do that on behalf of Newcastle University as a proud member of IBBC. So thank you for that. But I couldn't agree more with your really very wise thinking, and obviously reflects all the wealth of experience you have, Stephen, in transnational education. I would be probably the first person to agree with you that full-blown campus, UK university campus, might be too ambitious at this moment in time. But starting with collaboration, sharing curriculum, and so on, like what we've done in Kufa with the medical curriculum in Leicester. And I'm really pleased that Ian Gillespie is here, because it was at his time that initiated the collaboration that he started in the university with Suleimani University, and they just signed, I think, Richard, with your blessing and your support, they signed an example of how it should be. This is how we can start. So we have Dundee University supporting Suleimani University to review their curriculum, and that's the way to raise the standards. So they can aim to apply the same standards, understandably, with all the challenges in Iraq, but at least we have a system in place to look into that and raising these standards. Just mindful of the time, I'm going to move very swiftly. Tim, tell us about the work that you're doing in Iraq, the schools, a little bit about, for the audience, about your organization and how you're dealing with the difficult situation in Iraq.
Thank you, Professor. So Stirling Education has a big footprint in Iraq, both in the north and the south. We have school pupils in the region of 11,000. Our target this year is 11,300, and university students across two campuses, one in Suleimania and one in Erbil, of around 7,000. So we've got not an insubstantial exposure, and the last period has been a little challenging, and Professor Mohammed asked me just to talk through a case study of how we managed our way through. So with your permission, Professor Mohammed, I will just talk to that. So at the end of February, as we know, there was the conflict was initiated. I don't want this to be political at all. So it was initiated, and there was whether you call them reprisals or tactical strikes on both the GCC countries, but also on Iraq. The first thing I did, was not to panic, but count to 10 and then panic. So we have a very, very simple mantra in terms of we do have a sort of disaster recovery plan, business continuity plan, call it what you like, and that's what I'll walk you through. In terms of our footprints in Iraq, we have, starting in the north, Dahok, we have Sully, we have Erbil, a small school in Saran. We also have Kirkuk, Baghdad, and Basra. So we are reasonably represented across the whole of the country. So Erbil was the city which took a lot of the strikes. So there were strikes on the 5th of March, there were strikes in April and in May. And if you know Erbil, you will know that they've got the largest US consulate I think I've ever seen. And we've also got the US and NATO base next to the Erbil International Airport. So two prime targets. So the rest of the cities weren't, and I've got to be, this is relative only, they were not as materially affected as Erbil. However, let's talk about Erbil. We kicked in our business continuity plan, and we have a risk waterfall. And the risk waterfall is simply, what do we care for? What do we care about? And of course, we care about our teachers, our administrators, our pupils, and their families. So safety was the primary objective. So we immediately took the teaching and learning away from the campus, and we took it online. Of course, we had a lot of experience from COVID of being able to do the teaching and learning online, and we also have a lot of resources from that period. So we're able to blow the dust off the videos and the screen-based assessments. The other point to note is, of course, we were coming into the Uzri exams, so there was a huge amount of sensitivity as well. And as luck would have it, we had developed strategically an online bank of examination questions, simply because we wanted to disrupt the tutor model in Iraq. So we get frustrated from time to time because the tutors sort of almost disintermediate schools, because they will encourage teaching and learning at home with tutors as opposed to with teachers. So we had an awful lot, we had a huge bank of questions which we could also roll out online. So that was very, very useful indeed. So that was the teaching and learning. And in effect, we were able to move through the gears on the teaching and learning side and do the preparation for the Uzri. So on the weekend, I came back from Iraq, and I can tell you that the Uzri is in full swing. I did take an opportunity to meet with the Ministry of Education in Erbil, because that was the region that was most affected. So I sat down with Dr. Alan and we talked about, in effect, getting through the hot period. The other thing which I suspect you would be interested in is our cash management. Why? Because to any business, whether it's education, trading, the cash is so important. And March is a key date certainly in our cash management cycle, because it's Nowruz. So from the 21st of March, we do our re-enrollment, we offer early bird discounts, and in effect, we look to get the cash in. However, that was a real challenge, to say the least. And what we try and do is that by the end of June, so by June the 30th, in any normal cycle, we try and have 70% of our enrolment, such that September and October, we then pick up the 30% of our enrolment. Needless to say, this was a major disruption in our cash flow, major disruption, because families were holding on to their cash. And why wouldn't they? Of course, pure logic, they would. So we had cash flow challenges. But in the very same way that we have the asset waterfall in terms of safety, what we care about, we have the same on the cash flow. And the cash flow waterfall is simply salaries for the teachers and the administrators. All other expenses, direct costs are put on hold, in effect, creditor management. So we have open conversations with people we owe rent to, with the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, those people who provide services to our schools group and universities group. We have very open discussions to say, we're putting this on hold. You will be paid and you will be paid in full, but at this moment in time, you will not be paid. And that's something that's really important to us, because your reputation, so a transaction lasts for a moment, but your reputation lasts for your career. And for us to be able to look our creditors in the eye and say, okay, guys, you will get paid, but not until this ends. That for us was very important. So what were the outcomes? Well, I can tell you that by the end of May, and I'm happy to give you the numbers, of our target, we hit around 6,500. So not 70%. We're down to around 60%, but it's all relative. And when I go through the numbers, then you will understand why. So for example, Kirkuk, 75%, they outperformed in terms of their enrolment to the end of June. Basra, 70%. Baghdad, 65%. Sully, 65%. Duhok, down at 40%. Why? There is something about Duhok. Maybe it's in the water, I don't know, but they are traditionally a laggard when it comes to parents re-enrolling the school. So when I talk about the 70-30 split of enrolment, actually, it's almost the other way around in Duhok. But the big centre that was affected was Erbil. So instead of being at 70%, we're at one half. We're at around about 50%. Now, in terms of business continuity, what did we do differently? Well, one thing we did was communicate. We ensured we communicate, and communication in this is absolutely key, whether you're talking to your staff who are clearly worried, you're talking to creditors who are concerned they're not going to get paid, but also families. So in Erbil, we have around 3,300 to 3,500 students. And we were able to, this is a quite remarkable figure. And this is something which, when I went to Erbil last week, I made sure that I spoke to all the staff to give my absolute sense of gratitude. We visited 2,000 families during the period of March, April, and May. And it wasn't just to have a cup of tea and say, we're looking forward to teaching again, and when it all goes, when this ends, it was a little bit more than that. So what we were able to do was to also, in certain communities, for example, what they call villages, which are basically apartment blocks, where we were able to bring students together, the teachers were able to do whiteboard sessions. And that was less about teaching and learning, but more about continuity, about being in front of an educator. So if I've taken anything away from this last period, and I'm very mindful that the risk hasn't gone. We all hope it has. Is communication, but also, ladies and gentlemen, have a plan, and then you must stick to that plan. Yes, there's being agile, but you must have a plan and then roll that plan out. So we were fortunate in the sense we have a disaster recovery plan and we have a business continuity plan, and we stuck to it. So we were able to come through. Not in the best shape. You see, I'm not smiling from ear to ear, but we've come through. Thank you, Professor Mohammed. Oh, you're on mute.
Tim, thank you very much. It's great you share with us insight into your organization working in this very challenging time, all these details. I'm sure this is helpful, not just for other colleagues there, but other businesses. And the key words is really communication, contingency plans. And I really liked what you said about using the innovation that you developed, or you were able to put it into use in a time of crisis. Again, it really very helpful to have this detailed picture about what's happening. Thank you very much. I'm going to move swiftly to Raed. Raed, Shweifat is a big name across the world, but it's really in the region. Tell us what's happening with your schools in Iraq and the circumstance, for that matter, in the region. How are you coping with the situation?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Since 20 years, I've been in Iraq for 20 years, started the schools. And since that time, every year we have a challenge. So it's never been quiet for the past 20 years. It
will be boring without the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So this gave us a little bit of resilience into managing all these challenges, and we've learned, as Tim said, we've learned a lot from COVID, and we continually developed our online program. So the biggest challenge was, and this is for international schools, you have to meet the standards of the international examination at the end, because, as you know, many exams were not cancelled in Iraq. So students should sit for SAT, and those that they have to sit for AP, they had to sit for AP. And preparation starts early. We're not expecting this much of interruption, but we expected interruption. So we've started our preparation the first day in school in September, especially with those that they have external exams. And this helped us a lot in catching up and to keep up the good results. We across all our schools, we had different challenge, but the most challenging was to keep the 300 expats member that we have in Iraq, to keep them in town and not to travel because of the incidents that happened, especially in Erbil. So we managed to do that through communication again. We've managed to do a lot of. We did a lot of activities. We did a lot of talking to the staff, and to continue doing the online in a safe way. And we succeeded in keeping all our members in the school in Iraq to do what they have to do. Academically, just 2 days ago, we finished the school, and I can say that we're not affected on academic level. We're waiting for our AP results, and we're hoping that it will be even better than the last year. SAT results, all our SAT results, it improved a lot as well from the last year and the previous years. This because of the online platform that we have and the preparation that SABIS prepared for the schools. And this was a very good test for our online. Going from here, just a few commenting on a few issues that was brought up on the table today. I would like to ask for a few things that as we're here and we have a representative, hopefully that can reach out to the government on this, the scholarship program that they're preparing new. Now, I hope it can take in consideration at least a number of students from primary school and from the grade 12 going to universities, not only the students going to study masters. And this can be managed through a benchmark of external exams for those, and maybe can be managed under the British Council as well, to be a member on selecting these students. And because we have a lot that they deserve to study at universities in UK, and they're very well prepared to do so, but their parent cannot afford it. So at least out of 10,000, let's go for 500. We're happy for that to start with. 200 to start with, it's okay, not bad. But they should consider. I've been asking for this many times with the government, and they should consider it, because we have really very good students. We have students with 11 APs, straight 5, A levels, high A levels. There are a lot of students that deserve to go for a quality education in their university, in their undergrad. The second thing that also we faced and we continue to face every year is how much seriousness in taking in consideration the 180 days that international schools should teach. Okay. Now, of course, we all support the Iraqi team, but every other day we have off because Iraq is playing. When it rains, schools close. When it's too hot, schools close. This gives you an indication on how much it's serious we're taking the education of these students. When we say 180 days, it should be 180 days. The interference of the government into international schools days off, and those that it's not pre-planned before, because of different incidents that we don't see it's serious, that affecting safety of the students. This is becoming a challenge, especially in Baghdad and sometimes in Erbil. Now in Erbil, we managed to separate this out of, and the Ministry of Education now is more helpful into understanding that international school has the 180 days that they have to teach. While in Baghdad, we still receive these notes that tomorrow close suddenly, and you have external exam that you need to prepare to, or this is affecting a lot actually. This is something that we need to push for at IBBC with the government as well, to be more understandable with the international schools.
Okay.
Other than that, it's the day-to-day challenges that, as I told you, since 20 years we face.
Yeah, thank you, Raed, and please be assured that we are not for everyone. We are not wishing the Iraqi team a swift return to the country because of the holidays, but we are just asking for decoupling between the achievements of the Iraqi team and having holidays. But again, and a valid point, which I think we press on colleagues in government about the importance of commitment to working days and hours. I know Iraq went through exceptional circumstances where it influenced the timing and so on. But I think it's time we go back into some normality in terms of prioritizing the working days. So I would agree to that. I will add my voice to that. With regard to the scholarship, we did make that point, Raed, suggestion, but as you would imagine, Dr. Kossay would probably agree with me, to the development of the strategy, it has been kind of quite long process. It got approval and so on. So making changes to that it won't be easy. But we'll add to your voice in terms of looking into the scholarship for bachelor degree. I am mindful that on the time that we are allocated 1 hour, but Agni, can you confirm that we can continue a little bit beyond the hour if people can stay around in terms of the
Of course, you can continue as long as you want.
Great. So I think it's very exciting. We're hearing from all the panelists, and I would like to open the floor for questions. But before doing that, we're fortunate that we have with us also Dr. Ahmed Al-Salehi. He's from Queen Mary University of London and has doing really great job in terms of facilitating academic collaboration between Iraqi and UK and his university. Ahmed, do you mind saying a few words about the work that you're leading in Iraq?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Prof. Mohammed. It's such a pleasure to meet you all. Assalamu alaikum. So I am Ahmed Al-Salehi. So I'm the regional academic lead for the Middle East for Queen Mary University of London. I'm also a medic by background and researcher, so I do focus on academia. First of all, I would like to say I've spent the last 3 months in Iraq. So I suppose that's 1-0, Stephen. You haven't been to Iraq recently. I'm joking. I think we should collaborate rather than compete. I know it's a competition. I've met Stephen. I had the pleasure of meeting him in the last conference at Mansion House, and we had a very good chat. So basically, our work in Iraq is I could divide it into 2 parts. Part of it is related to education-related activities. That these are the direct education-related activities. It's my attendance over the last 5 years going to do seminars, participating in webinars. Very recently, I've actually had a workshop with the British Embassy and the Ministry of Higher Education on chevening in Baghdad at Turkiye University. It was very, very good, actually. I really liked what we did there. We help out with conference attendance. Some of our professors, we go out as much as possible, obviously with the restrictions imposed as well because of travel restrictions. So that's the education part of our work in Iraq. This is apart from the informal kind of sessions that I do through my social media accounts to just help and support as much as possible with students wanting to study in the UK, not necessarily at our university, but at any university. The other part is related to partnerships that we have with the government and non-governmental organizations in Iraq. The most important being, obviously, through the work of the Cultural Attaché office in London. Thank you very much, Dr. Kossay, for all your help with this, obviously. And Prof. Mohammed as well, because the IBBC played a very important role in this. So we have a partnership, obviously, with the HCED. We started 2 years ago. We started with a small-ish batch of students, and then we built up on that, and now we're expecting a good number of PhD students, including clinical PhD students. That's been made possible through lots of back and forth conversations, visits, and a lot of work. We're obviously very much committed to support education development in Iraq, and that's one of the reasons we've offered reduction of fees on a number of programs as much as possible in order to achieve that. The other thing that I very quickly wanted to just touch upon, and it is kind of a question for Richard, I hope will be in touch after this session as well. So we've talked with a number of universities and with the Prime Minister's office in Iraq, in Baghdad, that is, and with the Ministry of Higher Education in Erbil as well, with regards to co-leading postgraduate degrees, co-supervising it, shared programs. Myself coming from a background of academia and research, so I'm very much aware of the costs into funding a PhD project, a proper PhD project, particularly in certain disciplines. in medicine, in health, in environment, and energy, where you need good laboratory resource and research and some other costs associated with that. Obviously, in the UK, we're very fortunate. Actually, our university is one of the fortunate universities that we get good funding from the Medical Research Council, for the Wellcome Trust from the British Heart Foundation, Cancer Research UK. So we get the funding, but most of the time it restricts us to work within the UK. I was wondering whether there's something that we can do, hopefully with the help with the IBBC and the British Council and the British government, so that we could reach out as a collective of the universities present here. Anna Stephen from Newcastle. I suppose we have someone from Liverpool University as well, if I'm not mistaken. So all of us together to say, could we talk to the grant awarding bodies that we could extend the funding for projects that take place outside the UK but shared with a UK university. I think that would make life much easier, because when I approach our PIs here, the principal investigators for supervising projects, one of the questions is how we are going to fund it. Obviously, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds. So these are considerable sums of money. The grant awarding bodies are happy normally to fund us, as long as we do it in the UK. So that's something we could, I'll put my email in the chat, and if you're happy to drop me a line, and we could carry on from there. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to talk to you all.
Thank you, Ahmed. And really great to hear about all the good work you're doing in facilitating the links, all these innovative ideas, and to how we can make the collaboration, the academic collaboration, solid and accessible to a wider pool of students. I think we have time now for questions, if any of the audience would like. Ian?
Thank you, Mohammed. You knew I was just desperate to speak, didn't you? And it's nice.
You're most welcome, Ian.
Yeah. And it's nice to see some old friends, and Stephen, I'm well ahead of you in numbers of times to Iraq, but I'm sure you'll catch up at some point in time. But Mohammed, at the very beginning of our session, you said, can we learn some lessons about, how can we do the kind of partnership thing better? And so I've got 6, I promise you, very quick points on that, both from having been UK VC and UK PBC, 2 different universities trying to create partnerships, and now a bit more focus on the Iraqi end, trying to develop partnerships with UK universities. But before I do that, I want to address Ahmed's question on research funding very directly. And Ahmed, I want to do this because I'm an ex-director of a UK Research Council. We're about to have a new PM. There'll be a cabinet reshuffle. That's the time to hit that question at government level, because frankly, RC UK can't do anything about it unless the Minister of Science decides to change it. So the opportunity is there, but you've got to do it at a political level, and kind of Russell groups like yourselves should be able to do that. Okay, on to my 6 very brief points, if I might, Mohammed. 1, it's about young people. Professor Kossay said this, it's about young people, it's about equipping Iraq for the future. So it's about ensuring that we're developing skills, job-ready skills for students in Iraq so that they can let Iraq deliver its potential. That's not just master's degrees and PhDs, that's basic degrees as well. We have to get in at the ground level. Secondly, we're going to have partnership that lasts. Tim made the point about have a plan and stick to it. Actually, that partnership that lasts, that sense of continuity, and it's going to have its ups and downs. And the universities that are on this call, I think you've all done that brilliantly. But that partnership that lasts between UK and Iraqi institutions at an institutional level, absolutely critical. Thirdly, franchising, fantastic. Branch campuses and the rest, yeah. But what we need to deliver, in my view, is really, really strong quality assurance, really strong accreditation, and build reputation. And if UK universities can help the Iraqi universities build that capacity for a quality assurance, then moving to franchise or validation type approaches becomes much more doable. So can we put some focus on that? But my next point, I've lost track, I think it's number 4, faculty strengthening. Getting people to go to Iraq anybody that's been to Iraq wants to go back again, but getting people to actually go is so damn difficult. So we've got to build faculty in Iraq, both Iraqis, but also others that will go to Iraq. So building that capacity, training trainers, if you like, so important, Richard. And I know that British Council is doing a huge amount of work on that. Penultimately, demystifying risk, because we've all worked across countries across the world, and we've been in places which from time to time are actually more threatening and more dangerous than Iraq is. But to get press and Stephen to get your VCs to go to Iraq, that's going to be my point of success. To get over the mental thought that Iraq is somehow more dangerous than anywhere else, and looking at demystifying and using fact-based analysis of risk. Again, Richard, I don't know if it's something the British Council can do there around risk analysis. My very, very final point: trust is important, consistency is important, so is pace. We can't afford to go at a pace of let's have a long-term development in 20 years, those of us who are still alive, come back and have this conversation. Professor Kossay has said in only 5 years' time, there's going to be a huge, huge gap between capacity to train and demand to train. We've got to meet that pace and deliver so that we can together help ourselves in the UK, but also create a future for Iraq. Broadcast over. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Ian. I mean, this is a reflection of the time and the effort you invested in Iraq and as well as other countries. But thank you for your contribution. And we have Dr. Hussein Al-Ali. If you can open your camera. Can you open your camera, please?
No, my camera is not working today. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. I'm Dr. Hussein Al-Ali from الرضا القابضة. أتكلم عربي ممكن؟
تفضل.
نعم، أنا من ممثل شركة الرضا القابضة للاستثمار. فعليا أنا عندي مداخلة بعد إذن حضرتك للي يعني تكلموا عنه الأساتذة ومشكورين طبعا، إنه إحنا في شركة الرضا القابضة يعني نؤمن إنه على تعزيز الشراكة ما بين القطاع الأكاديمي والقطاع الاستثماري، لأنه مثل ما تعرف حضرتك إنه مخرجات التعليم العالي هي بالأخير حتنصب كلها في سوق العمل. بالتالي في شركة الرضا القابضة عندنا تواصل مباشر مع مجموعة من الجامعات البريطانية لمساعدتنا في اتجاهين. الاتجاه الأول واللي بدنا نعمل عليه حاليا إحنا إنه هو إنشاء جامعة للذكاء الاصطناعي والعلوم الصرفة في مدينة النجف الأشرف. حتى التصاميم الخاصة بالجامعة متفقين مع شركة بريطانية أتمتها إنه وإن شاء الله خلال 2 3 تكون الجامعة كاملة وبادية بها القبول. أيضا عندنا عن طريق جامعتنا جامعة البيان عندنا جرى توقيع اتفاقية مع جامعة بليموث في المملكة المتحدة. تتضمن الاتفاقية إطلاق برنامج للدراسة المشترك 2+2 اللي يتيح لطلبة جامعة البيان إكمال أول 2 سنين دراسية على مستوى البكالوريوس. أنا أتكلم أول 2 سنين دراسية في العراق وإتمام 2 سنين الأخرى المتبقية في المملكة المتحدة، وبالتالي يقدر طالبنا أو خريجنا يحصل على شهادتين معترف بها أكاديمية، الأولى عراقية والثانية بريطانية. فقط حبيت أوضح هذه إنه حتى على مستوى البكالوريوس إحنا إنه يعني عندنا شغل وشراكات مو فقط على مستوى الماجستير والدكتوراه، أيضا على مستوى الماجستير والدكتوراه لطلبتنا المتميزين ولأساتذتنا. أيضا وقعنا نفس الاتفاقية مع جامعة بليموث بخصم يعني بالأسعار لأساتذتنا. شكرا.
أحسنتم دكتور. وهذا هو بالحقيقة الشيء اللي نحب نشوف أكثر من عنده، هذا التعاون، هذا النوعية من التعاون الأكاديمي. Just for the benefit of colleagues who don't speak English, 2 important points. Al-Rida group is member of IBBC, have been very active in linking both business and education, and 2 important initiatives. A British supported university in Najaf on AI, and a collaboration for a joint degree between Al-Bayan University and Plymouth University. Fantastic news to hear that. Thank you for sharing with us, Dr. Hussein. Any more questions or comments? Mu'taz, good to have you. If you can open your camera.
Mohammed. I think I can. probably. I can you see me?
I can see you.
Apologies. I have to run away from my lab because it's too noisy. So I'm using my phone for accessing this meeting. So good afternoon, everyone. So this is Murtaz. I'm researcher at University of Cambridge, and I'm happy to be here today. I just like to mention something. So I'm very admire everything that you've been discussing about the partnership programs and all of that. But I think it's fundamentally important to focus also on experiences. By that I mean, so I've been a student in Iraq, so I get my first degree in Iraq, and I know for student in Iraq, for academic in Iraq, they didn't have a chance to travel abroad. They need to have a short term exposure abroad. So any kind of short term intense experience learning, any kind research visit, short courses where they can have an experiences to know about what other people do, what is the other possibilities, then can bring that. I think that's easy to start with. And I think everyone here have resources and ability to help. I think that can be very first thing that we can start with in building upon or towards like partnership programs or all of the things that mentioned. I just wanted to mention this. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marta. It's really great to have you, and you have insight. Following from that point, a question. I think you're absolutely right, Marta. We need for people who cannot come to the UK and study for a long period, there should be other opportunities. And I wonder if any of the audience, especially the panelists, what's your view on postdoc? How difficult it is to get in the UK universities, especially if you are not a graduate of that? Stephen?
Yeah, I'd say postdoc is more difficult because typically it's done on a kind of individual to approach a university to find a supervisor, find a sponsor. And because typically if you're coming postdoc, you're normally on a kind of tier 5 visa, it's really problematic. Short programs may be easier. And quite often though, when we're dealing with inquiries that we receive, and just about 3 days ago, I got an inquiry from the University of Baghdad, which I know, very respected university in Baghdad, one of the oldest universities there. What they're looking for is a number of different things, and quite often universities just go to the safe zone. So initially they want to talk about programs because they've done that, they've already got that. But if we know that they're looking about short program delivery, I think the key thing is helpful if they can come to us with an idea about what it is they're looking for. It's very difficult when they go to a university to say, what could you do? Because it's like having the keys to the sweet shop. Where do you start? And who do you pass that information on? If they can come with a specific ask, it's sometimes much easier to get that dealt with. So if they come along and say, we'd like to do something clinical with dentistry, that's going to be extremely difficult to do because it's very, very expensive. And then the people doing those programs tend to be really busy. If it's something with a school that maybe isn't as busy, there's more opportunities for that. But I think quite often we get inquiries for the things that we're really, really, really busy with. And this is where sometimes we can't respond to them. So postdoc, I'd say, is going to be more challenging. It's very much down to the individual. But training the trainers, we've done it as an examples with Kazakhstan. So we do this on a regular basis with different nations globally. So again, there's nothing saying we can't do that with Iraq.
Yeah, fully understand. And I think Ashley wanted to come. But before Ashley, Richard, if you want to leave, I just want to say a huge thank you for joining us whenever you want. Yeah, but thank you again.
Yes, I will bob my contact details in the chat before I go. Anything you want to follow up on that we've discussed today or wider things going forward, please do drop us a line. We're always happy to talk. Mohammed, thank you very much for inviting us to be part of the session today, and we look forward to working with you all for the rest of 2026.
Likewise. It's always a pleasure to work with the British Council and with yourself in particular, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ashley.
Yes, hello. I just, in the light of the cultural attachés points about 500,000 shortfall in university places in Iraq, And I just wondered to what extent online qualifications might be allowed or accepted, or indeed using online teaching and AI. What's the position on that? That would be a fairly quick way to cover at least some of the ground.
I think there's a clear answer to that. Actually, I think I know, but I'll let Dr. Kossay. السؤال على الكورسات اللي هي اونلاين حتى تمتص قسم من الاحتياجات اللي راح تكون. شنو رأي الوزارة؟ لأنه على حد علمي هي ما تعترف بالكورسات اللي الشهادات اللي أونلاين. رأيك؟
Yeah, online teaching is still in Iraq not accepted. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe within 5 years, in 2030, it will be accepted because of the number of students and because of the developing of AI. No one knows, but now the online teaching is not accepted in Iraq. Yeah.
Okay, great. So
pretty clear.
Actually, you have your answer.
Well, yes, except of course you're not going to build enough universities in the next 3 or 4 years. No. So the problem is almost immediate, and therefore one, they're not responding to it.
Well, I think like Dr. Kossay said, probably over the next 5 years things might change. Fingers crossed. Any other question?
Dr.
تفضل Dr. Kossay.
For everything, as Stephen said, yeah, we can start with baby steps, like Dr. Stephen said. Yeah, we can start with baby steps, and step by step we can building the trust towards to the franchises and something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we can make that step. If we cannot go straight into what we want, we can work towards it. Any more questions or comments? Well, that leaves me with thanking you all for joining us today. It's really it was a pleasure to listen and to have your contribution today, especially our panelists, all the audience for making this session. And a huge thank you to the IBBC staff who made sure that this event have taken place. As you can tell by now, I'm not James Young. I'm just using his screen and his laptop. But thanks for Agni and James and everyone who have helped create this session. Thank you, and look forward to see you in future IBBC events.
Thank you.
Take care. Assalamu.
Thank you.
Thank you.